All right, welcome back to Waste Some Time with Jason Green. I am Jason Green, bringing you brand new interviews right here on YouTube. Now, when you think of bands from the 80s that got signed from the Hollywood scene, you're thinking of your Guns N' Roses and Faster Pussycat, LA Guns, bands of that nature. But some of them fell through the cracks and some got a raw deal. The band Jetboy being one of those bands. Jetboy formed in 1983, originally signed in 1986, which would have been ahead of the game, but the album Feel the Shake doesn't come out until 1988. Death, drama, all kinds of issues would then become part of this band that I'm happy to see sort of getting their attention now as people discover some of the music from that scene. My guest today, Billy Rowe, was a founding member of Jetboy. He's currently in the band Buckcherry, and he has his own guitar company called Rock and Roll Relics that does some really cool, I don't know if the word is tribute guitars. He'll tell us about it and more right after this. Just wanna waste some time with you. Sometimes it seems too good to be true. Nobody out there waste time with that. Please welcome Billy Rowe. How are you, Billy?
I'm good. How you doing?
Good. You know, Billy, I wanted to say in the introduction, I was so busy with my Jetboy Got Screwed introduction that I didn't get to say, we see each other in Hollywood all the time at the Hollywood show, which is a collector's sort of memorabilia show. And we always talk about the different 70s celebrities, 80s icons from our favorite movies and TV shows. And you have a vast knowledge of that music and that pop culture. That's something we had in common. And I thought for the longest time, I got to have you on the show so we could talk pop culture for an audience, because we're doing the best show in the parking lot every show, but we could give it.
Exactly. I know it's pretty funny. We could talk from, Sigmund and the Sea Monster to, Hanoi Rocks Oriental Beat. It's all
in front of Sigmund the Sea Monster. You know what I mean? Like, that's the even craziest part. You're literally talking about this culture right in front of the people who produced it. And so I remember we were at one of the shows and you're like, hey, I wish I could come back tomorrow, but I got to play in Vegas with Buckcherry. It's like, we've changed our schedules around some of these nostalgic memories. So let's go back to talk a little bit about Jetboy first, because I think a lot of people know you from that. And it is a crazy story. Mickey Finn has been on.
Mick's been here. Yeah.
But it's a crazy story. And even though Jetboy becomes a band from the Hollywood scene, you're based out of San Francisco originally, right?
Yeah.
Did you grow up in San Francisco?
Yeah, I grew up in San Francisco proper, 415. Yeah. So in the streets of San Francisco, another one we could talk about.
Yeah. It's funny. I'm going to San Francisco soon to shoot filming locations. Dirty Harry.
Yeah, very sure.
Yeah, streets of San Francisco, definitely on my list. And then, of course, Full House later year.
Or you could go deep and go Bullet.
Yeah, that's going really deep. Yeah, but a classic, though.
Yeah, or in the streets of San Francisco. That was.
When you were a kid, were you watching those shows, like thinking about, hey, that's just down the street?
Yeah. I've actually a couple times. I think they shot that show. What was it, Vegas and Streets of San Francisco? As a kid, I would see the trucks, and we'd be cruising around in the neighborhood, and they'd be shooting scenes for Streets of San Francisco. And I remember that show, Vegas, wasn't it? With Dantana, was that show? Right? It was there was a house in my neighborhood that they shot in, which was down by the beach. Which funny, later, like 20 years later, Kirk Hammett bought the house right next door to that house. So it's kind of funny.
That Vegas show, Robert Urich, Dantana. Yeah, I have a video coming soon here in Vegas about locations from that show. Not much left.
Probably not, but that was a great show.
Great show, classic. That's Robert Urich was great on SWAT, and he was great on Vegas.
Yeah, that's right. He was on SWAT. That's another one I loved.
That was the best time growing up watching TV. Watching TV is a lost art, because we used to only have so many channels and we catch these shows. Now people have streaming. So if you don't know what you're looking for, no one's going to find these things.
Yeah, it's tough. There's too much out there.
Definitely too many options, and you just wouldn't. The
Yeah.
flipping the dial days are over. But so you're a kid growing up in San Francisco. When do you first play guitar?
Well, I picked up a guitar. I was like, I don't know, probably 9, 10, but I didn't really focus on it. It was just, you know, I had a few lessons and all that, and I had gotten in. My parents got me an acoustic guitar, and it didn't click. Put it down for a few, and then I guess when I was around more 12, 13, when I picked it up and really got into it.
And how soon before? What's the first band you played in?
Well, there was a few cover bands. My buddy and I from grade school. He was a drummer, Eric, who later on he was in American Heartbreak with me. And we would just do covers. It was a bunch of friends of ours, and we called ourselves Armageddon, not even knowing there was a band called Armageddon. And we would cover. This would be like 80, and there was a whole new wave of British heavy metal that we got hip to and we were deep into. So it was stuff, bands like we played Road Racing by Riot, Wasted by Def Leppard, and early Iron Maiden, and just we just fumble through that stuff, and that was kind of the first band. And then honestly, the first band was really Jetboy.
You and Fernie Rod, the other guitar player, were the first two to sort of form it, right?
Yeah. We met, hit it off. We met at a club in San Francisco, the old Waldorf, and he used to tech for this band called Head On, and they were like local rock heroes. They were like our Motley Crue. They had the great songs, the great look, and we just clicked, and we started hanging out, and we just said we should start a band. And yeah, about a year later, we had Jetboy.
Did anyone from that band Head On go on to do anything else that we would know?
Yeah, Frank Wilsey, he went on to play with Arcade.
Yeah, he was in the Sea Hags.
Yeah, Sea Hags. Well, yeah, Sea Hags prior to that. He joined Sea Hags right when the Sea Hags got a deal as a second guitar player, and then a few years later, he played with Piercy. I think he still plays with Piercy once in a while.
Yeah, that was one of those bands that's plagued by junkie business.
Right.
Sea Hags. There's a lot of bands in this time that are going to have that. But so there's a scene. The Hollywood scene is definitely not the metal scene that it would become at that point, 1983, the year that Jetboy starts. Tell me a little bit about other bands that are playing at that time in '83.
Well, in San Francisco, it was in the Bay Area, we would say. You had bands like Head On. You had a band called Roadrunner. And we had a band called Hans Naughty and Violation. These were all like the local bands. But then you had Huey Lewis and the News. That was still pretty local. Eric Martin, which he had. It was called 415 was the name of the band before it changed to Eric Martin Band.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God, there was so many. The Tasmanian Devils. There's this band called Earthquake, and then you had Mike Varney, who started putting out U.S. metal records, and so you had all the Guitar Hero guys that were popping up. The Bay Area was huge with music.
And at some point, Metallica.
Well, Metallica later on, yeah, for sure. But I mean, in my days growing up, and I grew up in the neighborhood about 4 blocks away from where Paul Kantner lived. So as a kid, we used to go up. There was a rope swing right next to their house, and we go up there in like 78, 79, and they'd be rehearsing in the house there, and you'd see Ainsley Dunbar, Paul Kantner, Grace Slick, and China used to come out and hang out when she was a little kid. She'd come out and tease us. We were like kind of the teenage kids with skateboards, smoking weed, or actually tea, thinking we were like the cool kids on the block,
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably one of those things that now how cool it is. Years later, you probably went, you know what? I was sitting outside Jefferson Starship. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you don't think about all that stuff, and then years later, you see how these bands are iconic now. Journey, Montrose, Gamma, Eddie Money. I mean, all these bands, Santana. I mean, all this was all Bay Area stuff. And then later, of course, you had the Metallicas and Green Day and Rancid and the whole metal scene as well. From the earlier stuff, Death Angel, Testament, Violence. And we all were kids. We all grew up on the same thing. We were all rock and roll fans.
Right.
Grew up on Kiss and Aerosmith and Cheap Trick and the Sex Pistols,
You can't really go wrong. Was there a singer before Mickey?
Well, we auditioned a few singers. One of them was who I'm still great friends with. It was Dean Del Rey. He's a comedian now.
Mm-hmm.
We just did that AC/DC Bon Scott tribute a week ago, 2 weeks ago, whatever it was. He auditioned, was kind of the first guy to audition, and I don't think he wasn't ready. We were ready to dive in, and we were pulling out all the stops with the hair and the nail polish and the makeup and everything. So, and then Mickey came along, and this would have been, we formed and we started in '83. Fern and I met and through '83. It must have been towards the end of '83, mid '83. I knew Ron, the drummer, and then Fern knew Todd, our original bass player, and we just started playing, writing songs. We had about 12 songs just musically written, and then Todd knew Mickey, and he goes, I think I got our guy to be the singer, and that would have been probably, I don't know, right before I was in high school. So it was right before I graduated high school, and that would have been my senior year. So
that would be the lineup that's in this photo we're looking at, right?
That's the original lineup. Yeah, that's Todd leaning on the wall opposite of me, Fern in the black jacket, posing, beautifully. Ron in the back with the hat, and good old Mickey Finn with the hawk. That's at the Roxy, that shot backstage upstairs.
Wow, yeah, it shows you what you were saying about the hair. Mickey always had the mohawk.
He didn't. The first maybe 3 shows, he did not have the mohawk. And I remember his girlfriend at the time, Sheila, was going to school to be a hairdresser. And he says, "Oh, I'm going to do it. I'm coming with a new hairstyle, whatever you want to call it, however he said it." And he walked through and he had the hawk. And we were kind of shocked, because that was pretty extreme for its time. I mean, you had bands like, Exploited and, Specimen and bands like that were, some of the members had the hawk and all that. But when we were like super glam. There was nobody doing what we were doing with a singer with a mohawk. So, but it worked. It really became the trademark of the band.
Definitely. I think a lot of people, when they saw Jetboy, because people associated mohawks with punk, I think this was a totally different. And maybe it's a curse too, though. Maybe people go, "Oh, that's the Mohawk band," but it was still something that you would remember. So, at this point, the scene in LA is starting. You're probably seeing a lot of those bands coming up from LA, coming up to San Francisco, right to the Bay Area.
Well, yeah, there were some. So to back it up, when Fern and I met, when we were looking for a singer, we had this friend, Diane, who was a super fan of Wasp. And this is before Wasp had the first record was out. And she would drive, one time she goes, I'm going to go to LA to see this band Wasp. I don't think I knew who they heard of them yet. You guys want to go? And Fern and I would hitch a ride with her in her El Camino. It was like a 74 El Camino. We'd bolt down to LA. She'd go do her thing. And, but Fern and I would do our thing, but we would go to the show, and it was at the Troubadour. Mm-hmm. And this would have been '83. I don't know at what part of '83. It would have been the mid or late, whatever. And it was a total scene. Even a band like Wasp, who was, they were glammy. I mean, they had their glam moment and all that, but a little heavier than what we were going musically, as Fern and I were into. But we were into it. And there was a guy leaning on the wall outside of the Troubadour who had the look of what we were into, which was really the whole Hanoi Rocks, Girl. Mm-hmm. It was a band called Easy Action and Kicks and all that. Just however you want it. Thunders, New York Dolls, all that shit. He was leaning on the wall, and we just got to talking, and we just hit it off, because it was like, boom. Sure enough, he was in the same thing, Hanoi Rocks fan. And when he introduced himself, he said, "My name's Izzy." And it was Izzy Strado. And then that's where, from that day, Fern, Izzy, and I, and he was in Hollywood Rose, and Chris Webber was there, and I believe Axel was there too. We just became fast friends, and they had Hollywood Rose, but I want to say that he was talking about doing something different or new, or I don't know, but we all hung out for quite a while and kept in touch. And so we would go back and forth looking for singers, never found anybody. And when we started playing, doing gigs, we just basically started swapping shows. And GNR was the band that, they had that going. They had gotten it up in GNR, and that's when we started. I think our second show in LA was Jetboy, Guns N' Roses, and the Joneses. And I think it was the first show. It was at the Troubadour. That would have been 85, I believe. And that would have been the first show they did with the classic lineup.
That's wild. So, yeah, because the lineup before with Tracy Guns things was very short, only a few shows.
Yeah,
so you're talking about the first
exactly.
one.
Yeah, I think it was a different drummer as well in that lineup too.
Yeah, Rob Gardner maybe was his name.
Yeah, which I think Rob was in Hollywood Rose, I believe too. Mm-hmm. So, anyways, we became fast friends, and then when our band started going, that's where they would come up from LA and play with us. They would open for us in SF, and then we would go down to LA and we would open for them. And that, that moved on with Poison, Faster, LA Guns, all of us. We all became real fast friends. We were like the big four for that era.
Yeah. Well, and there's the famous show at the Whiskey. There's a T-shirt, Jetboy, LA Guns, Faster Pussycat, Guns N' Roses. It's a pretty crazy bill.
Yeah.
You guys get signed early though. 1986 is ahead of a lot of your peers.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about that process.
Yeah, we were playing out. Once we started playing LA, our first show in LA was in, I think, June or July of 85. And we played with that band, Madam X. Mm-hmm. This is the album lineup that Rick Derringer produced that record with the bass player, singer guy, and the two girls. One who went on to be in Vixen. And
Roxy.
Yeah, and there was this band, Roxy, and this band, Carrie Doll, but I think they were called Doll at the time. That was our first show, and we hooked up with a manager, Bridget Wright, and we just started, she started sending our demo out, and people started coming to see us. All the bands at that point, Poison, GNR, Jetboy, LA Guns, Faster. Once we started playing, there was interest within the labels. And we had, the buzz started kicking in gear. And this guy, Steve Pross over at Electra Records, was highly interested in us, and he followed us for quite a while. I guess he signed us in 86 of November, and he probably started to come see us in 85. And so we signed with Electra along with everybody else signing their deals in 86. We did our record. This is 86. This is like November. We moved to LA, and then come the beginning of the year is I could get into, and that's where we switched bass players. And then basically,
well, also just tell me a little bit about what moving to LA is like for you guys, because I don't think anyone's got any money. You're trying your best.
No, we were going back and forth for a year. And, I acquired with this our Andy Moraga was our tech. He was our lead tech, did everything for us. And my mom had a retail store, and this girl who worked next door at the shoe store said, had the band. She goes, me and my brother or something like that, we bought this old 55 GMC bus, and we were going to try to do a charter business, and it didn't work. She goes, I just want to get rid of it. You can have it. And so we went down, and there was this old 55, looked like an old, was basically a GMC full on, like, that wasn't a school bus, but looked like it. And I told my buddy Eddie, he goes, well, she said we can have it. So we busted a window out, got into this bus, and those buses have no key, it's just a toggle switch, and they just fire up. And so we fired it up, and it started running. And I just told Andy, he goes, well, she said we could have it, so let's take it, Mm-hmm. And so we acquired this bus. There's a lot more funny shit with that damn bus, but that could be a whole interview itself. So we had this bus, so we were able to communicate, go back and forth from SF to LA with our gear and everything with pretty minimal money. We basically got this bus for free. So it was it was diesel. So we played LA a lot, and we built a good relationship with friends and bands and all that. So
where would you stay in LA?
our manager was in LA, so we would crash on her floor. By then, Todd met a girl, or everybody had somebody that they can sleep on the floor.
A crash spot, yeah.
Yeah, friends, fans, whatever, everything. So we were down there a lot. So when we did move to LA, it really wasn't a shock for us. It was basically we just slipped right into what we were already kind of just got used to, got familiar with, basically.
Did you all live in the same? Did you do like Guns N' Roses or Motley, get your own apartment?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, but when we moved to LA, our manager, we knew we were signing a deal. We got a little bit of money, and we moved into a motel on the corner of Melrose and Vine, almost on the corner. And it was basically it was a drug prostitute, pretty heavy duty motel. And we had a kitchen. We had like a bigger one with the 2 beds. We'd each share a bed. Mick and I would share a bed, and Todd and Ron would share a bed. Fern had a girlfriend at the time, so he was living with her. And that was a good few months that we did that until we got more of the money, and then we got apartments and all that. So
is that motel still there?
I don't think it is.
There's a lot of those spots there. Yeah, that's good. That's good real estate now, probably.
Oh yeah, that motel had a thick ass plexiglass bulletproof window at the when you walk in back in 86. So you knew it was pretty sketchy back then.
Yeah, they knew. Now, was Feel the Shake on the demos that you got signed for?
No, it wasn't.
That song didn't exist.
Yeah. So, we get signed. We're playing all these songs from the early days. We demoed them all when we got signed to Electra. They said, of course we kept writing and all that. Feel the Shake was written. Few other songs were written. By the time we go to do this Feel the Shake, there was only like 2 or 3 songs that we were playing through the clubs that got us signed that ended up on the record. And, we worked with Tom Allum. He did all the great Judas Priest records. He did the first Def Leppard. He's a legend,
It's got to be huge for you because that's the music that you were into. Yeah.
Yeah, it was huge. But personally for me, when we got into it, the band was, they were talking radio and all this stuff that I never was a radio guy and all that, but they saw the band as being the one that could be, have the hit or whatever. So the record was very polished. They cleaned this up, I felt, a lot. It's a great record. I love it. I think most bands could sit there and go back and say, actually, I would change this and that, even some of the most classic, iconic albums. So I felt, it was a great record, but it was a little more polished than what we really were live. The record was all set to go. We got tons of press. We always got great press. We were in all the magazines before we were even signed, from Cream to Hit Parader, all the rock magazines I grew up as a kid. And then come the end of 87, which is when we recorded the album and when Sam had joined, the label went through a shakeup. Our A&R guy got fired. He had signed us in that band, the Pandoras, and they fired him, and they basically shelved both his bands, which would be Jetboy and the Pandoras. So we were basically, we were dropped.
Right, drop before your record comes out.
Yeah. I mean, there was artwork, there was everything. It was done. It was ready to go. We had advances, the acetate of the album, the sequence, the whole thing was done, ready to go. We even had a release date, I believe. And then that just put the brakes on big time. And then Michael Goldstone at MCA was the first to call our manager, and he was like, I want to sign the band. And there was a few other labels, but we were so adamant about the record. It's done. We don't want to record again. We just got to get this out, or we're just going to lose all this momentum. And so we were pretty, adamant about just picking the label, picking up the album. That's what Michael Goldstone wanted to do. But lo and behold, it took a good 8 months for that to even happen, to go through all the legal crap.
So by the time, about Todd a little bit, because Todd Crew, the original bass player, he would leave the band before you recorded the album. And now, and obviously in 1987, he tragically died. It's a story that's been talked about a lot because he was with Slash at the time in New York City. But he left before you made the record. How did that happen?
Well, Todd was, he took things to extreme, and when we got signed, there was times where it was really difficult to rehearse. It was the drinking, he did OD on heroin, but he wasn't, from what I remember, Mick would know better than me, deep into the heroin thing, but it was the drinking, and it did get in the way. And at one point, everybody in the band was frustrated. We had manager, we were signed. It became very known that he was problematic at the time. And so we decided to let him go, and I believe Tom Allen was involved in something like, I want to work with the band, your bass player. There were comments. I mean, I could be wrong with that, but that's what I kind of remember. And so we were like, okay, we just kind of made the move, but at the same time, we kind of knew where we were going with it, because our manager had asked if you could have anybody in the band, who would you want? And I know I said, and the rest of us, I'm sure, said at the same time, would be Sam Yaffa, because we were huge Hannah Rocks fans. And crazy enough, it happened. Our manager Bridget knew somebody at Warner Brothers Publishing over in Sweden and made a phone call, and it got to Sammy's old apartment, and Anna was moving out. They were moving out of this apartment or whatever, and she just happened to answer the last call that came in before unplugging the phone, and it was Bridget trying to get a hold of Sammy. He got the message, heard the demo, flew to England and met with his managers who managed Hanoi. They had the demo. That's where he listened to it, and yeah, he accepted the plane ticket, and he didn't go back for years later.
Yeah. Was it tricky to get him here in the States, though?
No, it wasn't tricky to get him here. We knew it, we knew he was gonna. We didn't know for sure if he was gonna stick around and be into it, but we knew that, okay, we got a shot with him, and we had let go of Todd, so we kind of knew we were gonna have not much of a layover with what was gonna happen, unless Sammy said, like, I don't want to do this. But it worked out great. But getting him in, the only thing we had to do is, I think our lawyer had to prove that he was the only guy suitable for the job, to basically get him the working visa and all that stuff. So back then, that kind of stuff was, I guess that was difficult back then, So.
Oh yeah, and Hanoi years later would all have issues. They still have issues. Some of them.
Yeah. Well, nasty. When Sammy joined the band, once he came and had no clue what was going on in LA. He looked around and was like, oh my God, there's all these Michael Monroe lookalikes, and Hanoi Rocks lookalikes. And so soon after that, here comes Michael, here comes Andy, and here comes Nasty. And that really was Sammy what, made that all, for them to see, like, wow, maybe we need to move to LA and see what can happen, see what will happen. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And so while all of this is happening in 1987, Todd goes to New York City with Guns N' Roses, and tragically, he's in a hotel room. And there's been different accounts, and Mick talks about it in my interview here.
Yeah.
How do you find out that he'd passed away?
I guess it was our manager. I believe we were in Florida mixing Feel the Shake. And I remember being in the hotel room that we were in, and Bridget calling us and saying that Todd passed away. So I guess we were bummed, shocked, surprised, not surprised, all in one, This is 6 months after he was out of the band, So it was kind of the first casualty of that era of bands, I mean, he had stuff later on and all that, but in like the Seattle scene and people like, Wes, who was the writer who wrote a lot of songs with GNR and all that. But with Todd, that was a serious, close to home one, for all of us.
Yeah, and he was a kid, right? I mean, how old was Todd at the time?
He was 21. He would have been 22. What was it, June or July, I believe. So, yeah, he was 21 going on 22. So,
Yeah, I mean, I told you at some point I might go visit that hotel and do a video and talk a little bit more about it. A lot of people dispute what Slash said in his book and his opinions of it, but more of a
right.
story for another day.
Uh-huh.
I mean, what did you hear?
Well, we heard, he OD'd, and, he was, him and Slash's girlfriend at the time, Lois Ayres. I don't know, they went and scored some heroin and got high, and Todd OD'd. I mean, I guess nobody really knows the story except the ones that were there, and that's two left. So I think back then, here it is years later, a lot of these guys, as well as myself, the band I'm in, Buckcherry, everybody's sober, it's a whole new way of life of looking at things. So, but just looking back, everybody was young, everybody felt invincible. That wouldn't happen to me, and when something like that happens, it's just you really don't know what to say, it's through generations. I mean, Bon Scott, John Bonham, it's just Keith Moon. There's endless.
Mm-hmm.
As well as just normal everyday people too, these stories happen with these overdoses. So yeah, I mean, I think there was a lot of anger and guilt and all that on both sides, on all sides of the fence when all that happened. But now it's just, what are you gonna do? It's just part of life, It happens. Unfortunately, it happened to Todd.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those sad rock and roll casualties. A young person,
Yeah,
Sid Vicious also, 21 years old.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can't really point fingers, Slash is with him, and Lois, and, I mean, they were 20, 21, 22 as well. It's like something like that happens, what do you do? You're in the heat of the moment, you panic. I mean, I have no idea, so everybody was a kid,
Mhm.
experiencing something like that. It's just either whether you make the right decision or the wrong one. You made a decision, and it's what happens in the end. Something that could be a good decision or a bad one, but it's hard to blame anybody, really, something like
Yeah,
that.
especially as you said, in the moment.
Yeah.
Sammy Offa's been on the show a bunch of times, and he also says about the Razzle crash with Vince Neil. He says, you know what, Razzle also made the decision to get in the car
Right.
with a drunk
Yeah.
driver, and
Right.
it's
Yeah.
hard to say. They both wanted this. Now, it's the
Yeah.
people who were injured in that crash, the innocent people, these teenagers who were
Yeah.
paralyzed.
Right.
That's where you say these people had nothing to do with it. But so when you're a kid and you have all this going on and it seems glamorous, drugs will often win. The people who made it through
Yeah.
are survivors and are fortunate to have done that. You're recording now while this is happening. Did you have to record the entire Feel the Shake album again?
No, because when we recorded that album in it was, yeah, right, we were mixing it when Todd passed away. So it was done. Todd was out, Sam came in, learned the songs, and boom, we recorded that record, and it was finished by the
Mhm.
time Todd had passed away, which was like 6 months or so after he was out of the band.
1987.
So it was recorded, done, everything, So we did not re-record that record when we got dropped, and MCA picked it up, and the only thing they did is we had that song "Make Some Noise," which we had written. Michael Goldstone loved it. He wanted it on the record, so they put us back in the studio, this time with Rick Browdy, and he produced and recorded that song, and they bumped a song called "Hard Climb" that was kind of our ballad, and I feel was kind of a mistake on bumping that song. So, but
Yeah, it was a time when having a ballad could
yeah,
could buy you some time and get
yeah,
some attention.
right, yeah, mm-hmm,
Maybe a little early. As I said, Jetboy is one of these bands that you get lumped into the scene. What's going to be called a hair metal scene. You're going to be lumped into it, but you guys are long before that and working
yeah,
on it. But this delay between '86 and '88, is going to cost you some time. At this
Yeah, a
point,
year is a long time in those days. You know, especially when
Mhm.
you're younger, a year is, it doesn't seem like a long time. But with music, that's a lot can happen in 1 year with the whole style could be gone.
While you're mixing Faster Pussycat, Guns N' Roses, their records are later LA Guns. All these records are coming out, and you got to be sitting there going, "We got to get this record out."
Yeah, that's what really was. We sat back for that whole year and watched all our friends on MTV and touring and all that, and we were just, waiting.
Mm-hmm.
It was brutal.
Yeah, I can imagine. He would take a
Mhm.
look at the cover of Feel the Shake here with Sammy Offa and the rest of the guys. Where is the drummer for the original drummer for Jetboy?
Today,
Yeah.
he's in the Bay Area. He's in a place called Richmond, which is over in the East Bay. Ron was he did contracting work since high school. His dad was a contractor, so when he moved back, he did some odd jobs for a while. I know bike messaging was one, and then he just got back into contracting, and now he's his own contractor. He builds houses.
So he never wanted to do music again after this.
Yeah, he still plays. He's still a big music fan. He did a couple of the shows once in a while if he's in the mood and the planets align for Dirty Ron, he will get up there and do a show with us at the Whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, there's nothing better than Dirty Ron on the drums. So he was the man. Mm-hmm.
So 88, the record comes out. What happens when it comes out? Do you feel like nothing is happening, that we should be moving faster?
Yeah, well, we were so pumped that it was just out and like,
Right.
let's go work. We just wanted to get out there and tour like all our friends were. So we were just pumped that was going on. It's like, let's get this record out, and what we've been waiting for is happening now. So, but we didn't really we had a few tours. We went right out with Kicks instantly. Blow My Fuse came out, and right when Feel the Shake, we had become really good friends with them early on when Midnight Dynamite came out. They came out to the West Coast and did shows with us, before we even being looked at labels, and we became super close. And so when that record was coming out, we saw, Blow My Fuse. I told our manager, let's do some dates with Kicks. And, we did about 30 some odd shows through the East Coast with them. So that was our first tour.
Blow My Fuse record took a minute to take off too. It's for a lot of people. MTV's Headbangers Ball was exposing people who might not know. A lot of people thought Kicks was a new band. Meanwhile, they've been around.
They did. Yeah, that was their fourth record.
Been around, but a lot of people heard Cold Blood, and then when they got to their ballad, Don't Close Your Eyes, there was a new audience.
Total new audience. Yeah, they'd been around. They formed in like '79.
Crazy.
That was one of the bands that Fern turned me on to Kicks way back, and that was one of our big influences of I got deep into those records. That first one, and then all of a sudden, Here Comes Cool Kids, which was '83. We thought they just disappeared because they were an East Coast band, so we didn't know what was going on with them. And then Cool Kids came out. Yeah, and that's right when we started playing, and
At that point, if there's younger people watching, Saturday nights at midnight, the Headbangers Ball became the thing. If you were into these kind of bands, and getting your song on, or getting an interview, things that you guys got, was a big deal. Tell me a little bit about the first time Feel the Shake comes out on MTV.
Yeah, I remember we went to New York, and we were there we were touring with Kicks, and we did that whole Adam Curry, Headbangers Ball.
Mm-hmm.
But they debuted, Feel the Shake was debuted the same night as Bullet Boys. I guess Smooth Up In Ya.
Probably Smooth Up, yeah.
Yeah. So it was amazing. We were on MTV. We've been waiting for that one too. All our buddies were on that. We're like, we need to be on MTV.
And Adam Curry, before Ricky Rackman, Adam Curry was hosting, and he would get his hair teased up, and probably the only metal thing about him was the leather jacket that he would put on for that show. But It was a big deal to be on it, and you guys got to do it.
Yeah, it was great. Mm-hmm.
At this point, are you thinking, listen, it's just a matter of time? Well, we're going to be up there too. It's going to take off.
Yeah, we definitely had that in our heads for sure. I think we all did. So there was definitely some highly disappointing moments. Yeah.
In 1989, Jetboy ends up on 2 soundtracks for at least one huge cult movie. The Burbs, with Tom Hanks, is a huge
Yeah.
cult movie. And I think there's 3 Jetboy songs on that soundtrack. And then she's
Yeah.
out of control, which I remember because
Right.
when the video was promoting the movie, right?
What, our video? What?
Well,
Which one?
there was a clip that they showed all the time from that movie of the boyfriend pulling up in the truck and playing Feel the Shake. And so I feel like I saw that constantly, and I think it turned people on to the band.
Yeah, that could have been. Yeah, that was the scene, and it was a great scene.
Mm-hmm.
It was perfect.
Mickey Dolenz daughter brings home, her punk rock boyfriend, and the song "Feel the Shake."
Right. Gets out of the truck and he's cranking "Feel the Shake."
I think people didn't understand at this time, because I've asked this question a lot about bands. Circus of Power, they had songs in the Burbs, and I always go, "How did this happen?" And the answer is always, the record label has a deal with the movie company, the same owner, and you get a song.
Yeah. I know with those 2 movies in particular, we were on MCA Universal. There was a girl who worked the soundtrack stuff at MCA, and she would pitch the stuff. And I can remember hearing, "Oh, you got pitched for this movie, The Burbs." And I remember going to see it and seeing the credits at the end, just going like, "Wow, this is cool." So there was that's a big part of how that happened, And I remember when we were doing the second record, I can't remember her name right now, but she did the soundtrack stuff. She says, "We're doing a movie, and it's about these 2 women who kind of just go off the rails and, live this wild life." Mm-hmm. And they had us working on a song that was around the basis of what this movie was going to be about. And then we got dropped and all that shit. But the movie was Thelma and Louise.
Yeah. A big one. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
It's that Jetboy roller coaster, of highs and lows.
It was a roller. Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
When does Jetboy break up the first time?
Well, we did the second. We did some touring. We did this second record. Right before we did the second record, we did tour with Cheap Trick, which was huge for us. That was, at least for me, that was massive. Yeah. And then we went in and started working on the second record, Damnation, which I feel, and I know the rest of the guys feel, that was really where we grew a lot and really were able to shine. Of how much, with that downtime we had, what we did do is we wrote and we practiced, and I think that record definitely showed that we, grew a lot. But the record fell flat pretty quickly, and once we got dropped, I think it came out, we toured a little bit, we did some dates with Vixen and the Electric Boys, and did some, whatever, some club dates here and there. Got dropped, and after that, our management just said, it's like, well, there's no money. So we all ended up moving home. We moved back to SF, got rid of our apartments, and we really never broke up. I always say that. We never said, like, we're breaking up. We just kind of went our own way with our tails between our legs, just going like, what do we do now? And everything changed. That by 90, you saw a big change in music, and we all saw it. So unless you had success and you were actually doing well at the time, it was going to be really hard being a band from our era. So.
What happens next in your life? How do you survive?
Well, we really did all move back to our parents' places and got jobs, So that's pretty much what we did. Mm-hmm. I got a job. We used to work in hardware stores as a kid, so I immediately just pretty much did that. I'm back into just working a job, but we stayed in touch. About a year later, we decided to get an apartment. Fernie, Mick, and I moved in with each other. We did another demo. We gave it a go. We wrote the songs. We had a couple friends help us out. We got some financial help, and we worked with Mike Bosley, who is he was the second engineer on Damnation. He was actually the replacement sound guy for many years in the early years of the Replacements. did this great demo, and it was actually with Dwayne Barron and John Purdell helped us out with this. We produced the second record, and just nothing happened with it. So we just shifted to becoming a different band. And Mick and I and Fern, starting off, we started this band called Mind Zone, which was more metal.
Mm-hmm. How long did that go?
And that left a few years. Again, this is when Pantera was hitting. Mick was deep into Pantera, White Zombie, and Prong, and Machine Head, and that was this new wave. Mick was deep into it, so we became a band very similar to that. We did a record, never came out, few years, and then it just kind of just fizzled away. And Mick kind of just wanted to step away from music at that point. Him and I had lived together through all these years. From when we got signed, him and I were roommates on the road. Back home, we had our apartments. And then when we moved back to SF, we lived together for a good amount of years until he ended up moving out of San Francisco back down to San Diego. He got married. And that's pretty much when the music ended between him and I. Fern and I and Mick split a few years prior to that, and we really didn't speak for quite a while. I went on to started that band American Heartbreak, and did that for a good 10 years. And within that 10 years, towards the end of it, I got a call from Brian Pereira, the owner of Cleopatra Records, and he had put out Hollywood Rocks, like the book, the CD box set, and then a DVD set. And he goes, we're going to do a release party for the DVD set. And he goes, I want Jetboy to headline. And I'm like, all right, well, I said, all I could do is make a call to Mick and Fern and see what they say. And I left a message with both of them, and they both called back and said, let's do it. And that would have been 2006 or something like that, or
maybe even earlier, I think.
Could have been early. Yes, it was around that time. But we did that show, and it was magical for us. It was that we just, it felt amazing, and from that point on is when the band has continued to work when we can work.
Basically. Yeah, it definitely did, because you guys kept going out, and you would do some of the the festival type things, or the cruise type things, and the scene, and playing shows. You're not currently playing with Jetboy.
No, well, I am, and I'm not. If I could do it, I do it. I did do 2 shows last year. We did that date with Rose Tattoo at the Whiskey, and then we did a San Francisco date. And then Mick went to England to do there's 6 shows or something like that. So if I could do it, I do it. If I can't, I got a sub. I could do it.
Is Fern retired from all of it?
He says he's retired, but when you're in Jetboy, you're never retired. It's just the way it goes. Even he almost did those 2 shows. He said, "Let me think about it." I'm like, well, he chose not to do it, but he thought about it. So. That means he's still got 1 foot in.
The good thing is that there's not bad blood. Do you know what I mean?
Bad blood. I think if anything, we did have our issues with each other, and which we're all fine. But it was really disappointment and not reaching the goals we wanted to reach is really what shattered everything for us.
In 2005, Rock and Roll Relics happens, the guitar company that I spoke about a little bit in the introduction. So I got 2 questions. 1, did you know anything about building guitars at that point? And 2, how does the company come about?
Yeah, I did know. I always tinkered with the guitars. It goes back to, really 7th, 8th grade. I was always into wood shop, building stuff, from skateboards to whatever. And so here comes high school, 1980. Super, Van Halen is hot. I'm huge into that, along with many other bands. But our woodshop teacher, everybody had a project to build something, just pick something to build. And I said, I'm going to build a guitar. So I built a Star guitar, which was my influence was Eddie Van Halen, his Shark Star Destroyer on the cover of Women and Children First. And I built that in high school. And from that on, just with guitars, I was into switching out pickups and stripping vintage guitars. I should have never stripped because they were just called used guitars back then. And I was always into it. So I build just parts guitars and then that time, the internet started happening. I started to see people like build these kind of aged looking guitars that were like vintage at the time. This is when you had vintage guitars came in. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to build something like that, do the finish work and beat it up, make it look old, and sold a couple on eBay. And then one thing led to the other. I go, well, maybe I could do something with this. And came up with rock and roll relics and slowly just posted more stuff on eBay, built a website, and here I am.
Now, the idea is everyone wants to own a Johnny Thunders guitar or Johnny Ramone guitar, whoever their hero was. I'm naming my heroes, but
Right.
and now you want to have guitars that are similar. Do you run into trademark issues when you start to build these guitars?
There has been things like that. With my Thunders model, it's not only it's my hats off to Johnny Thunders. I did the TV ones, but it's not a Johnny Thunders guitar. It's just that's the model name, and it's basically a homage to him in many ways. But there are a lot of stuff you got to be careful with trademark stuff, and
certain headstocks and things like
that.
that.
Yeah, I've run into that and I've dealt with it, and it's really they're big, challenging, stressful situations. But in many ways, it got me to where I'm at now, and to focus on my own thing and to hone things in, which is what I did. So we're basically we're a custom shop boutique brand. We do have our own models. Some are there's a couple that are classic style, but they are our thing as well. We have our own headstocks, and so it's my brand, and there's one model in particular that's completely our thing. Actually, two. I have a classic hollow body, which is every brand that's building guitars makes them that are very similar. So
I want to show some of the people who play these guitars, because this is a pretty prestigious class. Billy Joe Armstrong, I've seen him play those guitars a bunch of times.
Right.
How does that connection come about? Another Bay Area guy.
Bay Area thing, yeah, exactly. It all came from just Bay Area stuff, I knew Mike first through a good friend of mine who's real close with him.
Are these pictures, are they playing your guitars in these pictures?
Yeah, Billy's playing our Revenge Junior model right there. And then there's, Dragon there. He's got our Lightning hollow body model. And Johnny Resnick over there, he's got the same one that Billy Joe played. It's our Revenge model. Yeah. And then Ryan Roxley's got the standard Revenge, the 2-pickup Revenge. Tracy Guns has got the Starfighter model, my double cut carved top. Evan Stanley's got the classic Thunders 2.
It's great.
Marco Peroni, who's like Adam and the Ants, who's a legend, just borrowed a guitar when he did this benefit thing in LA, whatever. I became friends with him, but he's just, to have him play anything of mine is huge.
Yeah, legend. There you are. You play your own guitars, obviously.
Yeah.
Ryan, who was Ace Frehley's last, he played bass with Ace, I think, at the end.
He played bass with Ace, yeah, exactly. But he was playing guitar for a while with him until they went down to a 4-piece, I guess. Yeah. Phil, yeah, Peter Buck from REM.
Huge, yeah.
Yeah.
Gilby.
Yeah, good old Yaffa there. Built him that, that Yaffa Rasta bass.
Yeah, it's very, very cool.
Glenn
Campbell.
Yeah, Glenn Campbell. That was an early one. A friend of mine who produced a couple of those records before he passed hooked me up with him, and we built him that Strat.
How crazy. You know what I mean? To think that you built a guitar that would be played by Glenn Campbell.
Oh, I'm a huge Glenn Campbell fan too, so that was huge.
And this was a small little business that you started yourself. As you said, I like building guitars. I'll put a couple on eBay. And now, would this be your full-time gig, you would say, besides Buckcherry?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, even when I'm with even when I'm touring, I am on the laptop constantly. I got every day there's something, with billing, invoicing, or ordering parts, or doing image stuff for the website. I have 4 guys in the shop. I really don't build that much anymore. I do a lot of painting, like specialty stuff. I will do full builds and stuff like that, and they're kind of like my master build stuff. But I have 4 guys who do all the work, and they kick butt there. They're great.
Yeah, what a cool business to be in. In 2020, you'll get asked to join Buckcherry. Now, how does that come about?
Yeah, I had just moved to LA. I was in SF for years, after moving back from being in LA, the whole Jetboy thing. But I needed to move to LA. I wanted to move back because I needed to get a bigger shop as the business was growing. I had one guy working for me. He was willing to make the move. Right when we moved down, within 2 years, I got a text message from Stevie. And I want to say he asked me, do you sing backing vocals? It was just out of the blue. And I'm like, well, yeah, I used to when I was playing music more. I really hadn't been playing much. Had a cover band I did in SF, for like quite a few years, when that's really all I kind of did, and the sporadic Jetboy stuff. And then he called me, and this is COVID time had hit, and everything was starting to roll into lockdown. And he said, well, because we're going to be doing a couple shows through this, what's going on right now, but the last guy they had didn't want to play. He didn't want to go out and whatever it is,
Yeah.
And so would you be into doing it? And I said, well, he goes, I know you got the business, and I know you're busy, and you got our business to run. I said, well, I'm not going to say no, and I'm not going to say yes. I said, it's a handful of shows. I could totally do that, no problem. So I went out. We just did a handful of dates through 2020. And here I am 6 years later, hundreds of shows under the belt. It works. I can do it. It's this, gets a little stressful here and there, but it's nothing that I can't handle, and my guys can't handle at the shop. So
yeah, it's good to
help me grow the company, to be honest, because I am so hands-on and controlling of like, oh, it's got to be this, and it forced me to let go of a lot of things. And when you let go of stuff that you can't to grow anything, you can't do it by yourself. To grow to a next level, you need help. So
a staff, and you're the face of the company as well. And I don't think it hurts that you're out on the road playing shows. People see you playing your guitars.
Yeah, it completely helps. It helps more. It helps more than I realized in the beginning. It's done a lot for me. So
I saw you play with Buckcherry supporting Scorpions here in Las Vegas at the Residency, and it's funny. So I'm looking at the stage, and I'm like, that's the guy from Jetboy right there. And then I go, and that guy, that's the guy from Samantha 7.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
some deeper references,
that's
but
deep stuff. Well, I know that's all. The useless information is the best.
Well, that, and again, that's what we met on.
I know. Yeah. And our bass player, he was an Electric Lovehawks. If you want to really go way back.
Yes. But I think that world of pop culture and that world of trivia has become a thing. Nowadays, you listen to Sirius XM and you're going to hear Jetboy like it's a new release. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, there's a whole new generation into that type of music, that whole 80s thing. I mean, you see it on Instagram. They're like, they're in their 20s, I've met some of these kids, some have discovered Buckcherry through Jetboy, which is mind blowing for me, because they're so deep into that scene. So it's pretty cool.
I think young people want to have their own bands, even when they were new. But now you look back and you go, everybody knows Poison. Everybody knows good. Wait a second. This band was there and they played. I'm going to make this my band.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I was that way too with bands that were.
Me too.
Didn't make it. I was kind of more into the obscure bands. They just had a thing. They were just as great as the other ones. They just didn't have the success.
It is a lot of being in the right place at the right time.
It all is in the timing. Everything's timing.
The curse of Jetboy is timing. So many things happened against you, and that's life. I mean, that's that's the story, but it makes for an interesting tale for people to go back and listen to music. There was you made Jetboy records later as well, so there's new
Yeah,
Jetboy.
we did. Yeah, and through those years, to even back it up, when Mick left the band, when he didn't leave the band, when he moved and got married, moved to San Diego, I had discovered there was people releasing, all these bands were releasing these demo tracks and stuff like
Right.
there was this Paris Records, and then here comes Cleopatra, Brian at Cleopatra Records, and so I had all these demos, and I would get some tapes baked and digitized and all that, and I'm like, I got dozens of songs, so I put out a lot of those early releases. I would just put all that together myself, and these labels would put them out, which really helped keep the name alive in that whole scene, which was very underground.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and and obviously it worked
Yeah.
because we're still talking about these bands. Billy, you have to come back. My original idea was that you come on the live show and we'll just talk about cool '70s music and TV, and
Oh yeah, we got to do. Yeah.
Yeah, and people ask questions. So you come
Yeah.
back. I wanted to talk about your career first, and but you come back on a live show, and we'll just sit and we'll have a good chat about the same things we talk about.
I mean, I'll even, if there's some LA spots, man, where I can, I'll go to some of these locations ones. That would be amazing.
Well, I got some good ones for you. You got to come along.
Oh, I saw the Odd Couple one. That was pretty deep.
That was deep.
I saw your fandom with them. You got some photos with those guys through the years. That was pretty impressive.
I'm so glad I did it. Billy, in life, people tell you, no, be cool, be cool. Don't act like you're a fan. I'm so glad that I took all those pictures and got all that memorabilia. And now being a fan is cool. At the time, I never thought that this was going to be content. You know what I mean? But I'm so happy to share those like pop culture stories and then go to those conventions.
Great. That's why I love the autograph show. It's so fun. I mean, I just get a gas out of that. It's awesome.
I remember you because you'll tell me you got to listen to this guy's music, and it'll be some of the deeper '70s people. I'm like, not everyone appreciates it, but your people.
Yeah. Pretty stuff. Still got the passion for it. Yeah, I got to watch the Emergency one you did too.
Emergency one is really good because
so into that show. Oh man, I had the figures and everything.
You'd be amazed how many people became paramedics and firemen because of that TV show. Because I hear it. I hear it constant. Like that show made me do it. And at the time, firemen weren't all paramedics. That was a much later thing that they started learning. There was maybe 6 or something when
that wasn't normal with the fire department having a paramedic within it.
No, but that one was good because they let me come in the firehouse and see where they filmed it. It's crazy. And then the trucks and the ambulances are in a museum. And so
I know. That's over. I think it's over at Universal lot. I saw that. I'd love to check that out too.
They just made a fire. That's the one on Universal lot is just what they named their firehouse. They named it Station 51. Okay. But the real stuff is in a museum, maybe 40 minutes from there.
Really?
But it's really worth seeing. And this is the pop culture that, you just never know what's still there. I try to catch stuff while I can. The big one that I'm going to do next is Quincy. Did you watch Quincy?
Oh, I was going to say Quincy because of the Odd Couple. Of course I watched Quincy. Yeah.
No one has done a Quincy filming video yet. That'd
be a good one.
I found what I can. And, the restaurant that he would go to just closed a few months ago. It's like, I got to get there before they demolish it. But really? I love it. I think you feel the same. One thing about Los Angeles is that tradition, that TV, movie, music, the history that's there.
Yeah. It's amazing. I mean, there was all those shows in the 70s. I was just completely invested in that stuff.
I can walk through Hollywood and go, that's where Tom Petty signed his record deal. That's where Janis Joplin died. That's where Bobby Fuller died. That's where Dee Dee Ramone died. Yeah. That's where Back to the Future, with the dance scene was filmed, all within a few blocks.
I know. Yeah, it's amazing, and just the shows, it's just like, wow.
It was great. Think about who played those stages. It was never wasted on me. I played the whiskey, and it was I don't know. Maybe that same day, 40 years earlier, Johnny Thunders played that stage or something. And it's just like, you look around, you just go, this is a history. You know, it's something you've done your whole career. But as you
Yeah,
get
yeah,
older,
a lot of yeah, uh-huh. I mean, there's a lot of stuff, yeah. Some of those stages are, yeah, they're just legendary,
some
Yeah,
of
the
the
Dolls
bands,
play that, the Whiskey. I mean,
yeah,
that's crazy. The
to me, that's
original.
one of the big ones. Any kind of
Oh,
Dolls history. I've been
yeah.
looking to do a video about LA music history, about like the punk scene, about where the Ramones stayed and where they played, where Rock and Roll High School was filmed. One of the
Yeah, that's
scenes,
exactly. Yeah, that would be great.
one of the we should do it. One of the scenes was filmed in the office at the Whiskey. The scene where they get the pizza and he goes, "Oh, great pizza! Dig in." It's one of the offices upstairs.
Oh, really?
Because
Huh.
they didn't have enough room. The performance was filmed at the Roxy, but the dressing room was filmed upstairs in one of the offices at the Whiskey. And
Huh.
I did film that part. But like when I was in New York, I went and did videos about Max's Kansas City,
Yeah.
and there's not much there. When I got there, it was a Korean deli. You know, when we
Mhm.
got there, it was locked up, like
Right.
closed, and you could just
Uh-huh.
go up to it, and you could see the staircase because the bands played upstairs,
Right.
and like just that history and to be close to as much as you can
Uh-huh.
is amazing. And that's why New York and LA will always have such a close part of my heart.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, but for me, I was West Coast, so when I'd see New York stuff, I would be all just, I used to love it, I mean, Rock Scene magazine, just the music alone, I was into all that big time.
Yeah, it's
All New York, Lenny K's mag.
mhm.
Yeah,
it's
so good.
it's definitely something that we'll do, and you'll definitely come back and we'll talk and let people ask questions because
Yeah,
we
you gotta
can
do
go.
Adam
Could
12.
be,
What about Adam 12? That was a classic. That
that's
was,
a good one. I should look into. I don't think I've looked into it too much. There's got to be something there. You know, no one films. TV shows aren't filmed in Hollywood anymore. There's money to film in
no,
Atlanta, North
yeah,
Carolina.
uh-huh.
But all those old shows, you know, you watch them, they were filmed on location.
Oh, there's endless ones. I mean, Heart to Heart, just what was it, Columbo and
Mhm.
Barnaby Jones? There's
I've
like,
been working on I'm working on Rockford Files,
oh, that'd be
Mannix,
that's a classic.
and Barnaby Jones, and then Cannon, he lived in the
We got
Sunset.
Cannon.
Yeah, he lived like in the Sunset Tower. I found it. It's
Uh-huh.
still there,
Yeah.
you
Uh-huh.
know, but I hope other people appreciate it. You know, me and you aren't the only ones watching Cannon,
Well, I
but
think people are into that. I mean, that's what I scour through YouTube. It's just amazing, all the TV stuff.
mhm.
It's amazing.
My biggest video, the reason I have a channel, we talked about it, you went and saw it, is Sanford and Son.
Yeah, exactly.
That one, it's almost 900,000 views. And I laugh because I started doing daily interviews and then I went on the road to tour manage. And
Yeah.
it's like, it was too hard to do daily interviews and tour manage. Then I
Right.
finally got some time and I'm like, I'm going to talk to people that I want to talk to and I'm going to go visit the places I want to visit. And then
Mhm.
you find like minded people.
Right. That's
You know,
great.
and that's why that convention is like this little circle of people who
Mhm.
who appreciate this like world that we're trying to keep it alive.
I know. I know. I walk by some of those people and I'm just like, man, that's them right there. It's just,
Mhm.
sometimes they're like, they were a child star and now they're like 70. It's just wild. But you could still, you could see it's them.
The amount of people that I've seen at those conventions, I would say 85% of people have passed. You know that I've been going since the mid '90s.
Yeah,
I mean, our favorite shows are getting older.
I know. Yeah.
I got to watch. I heard that the Bay City Rollers Croft show is on Amazon Prime now for free. So that's my that's my next thing. Do you remember
What's
that?
that one? What's that one? The
Sid and
basic.
Marty Croft had a variety show that the Bay City
Oh,
Rollers
yeah, yeah,
hosted
yeah. I
with
remember that, but I don't know if I watched it.
I mean, I knew it existed. I knew Puff and Stuff was in it. And
Yeah.
so I'm like, you know what? I got to revisit it.
Oh,
Sid
yeah. I'm
Croft.
down with that.
Yeah, we had Sid Croft on the show. He's 95, 96.
Yeah.
Great interview. And I brought Frank Domino on from Angel because Sid and Marty Croft created the stage show.
Exactly. The A logo, which they called George, I think they said.
Mm-hmm.
And there's all that missing footage of Angel. I mean, oh my God, I can get into that.
It's one of the conversations you and I have had before. I texted Greg Jafria like yesterday. We'll see if he gets back to me.
Oh, that'll be a good one. Yeah.
'Cause I'd like to ask him.
And even the beef footage of what Foxes, like, where's that? I mean, that was live performance of Angel. They're probably lip syncing maybe, but maybe not.
Yeah.
You know, but
Fox's location would be good too.
Mhm.
But anyway, we could talk
Endless
about it for hours. You come back on a Wednesday. We'll do a live show and we'll talk
Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah, and I'll be into that.
pop
Mhm.
culture. Billy, Buckcherry shows this year?
Yeah, we leave a week from today. We leave to the UK, and we're doing 9 shows with Michael Monroe.
Very cool.
And I'm super pumped on that. Me and Sammy have been chit chatting because, when we lived together, what did we watch? Star Trek and Sanford and Son. So I told him,
Great.
we're going to have some Trek time, and then Sanford and Son, he's all ready. We're just going to geek out.
Oh, it's the coolest. It sounds fun though too, because Hanoi, a band that influenced you, Sammy, who was in your band, and now you guys get to go do it again this many years later as adults.
I know, it's
cool.
pretty wild. Yeah, we've kept up all these years, and the other guys, I know all them in the band, and they're all just great dudes. We're all
Yeah, he's
into
got
the
good guys.
same passion for the same music.
Absolutely. So you guys check out Buckcherry this year. See Billy Rowe there. Check out Rock and Roll Relics. We'll put some links in the description. I think that sums it up, right, Billy?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, we could go on forever about all these in detail, but that sums it up pretty good.
Yeah, I think. Listen, this will come out, and then we'll go through and we'll hash out the rest on a live show and let other people participate.
Oh yeah. All the TV stuff's gonna be great.
Yes, I'm ready. Thank you everybody for watching, and we'll see you again.
All right.